Hello, I'm Dr. Sharma Henderson, and welcome to the Carson Observer Podcast, the official podcast for Carson accountability and transparency, where we connect you to the public pillars who shape our community and keep our city running. We educate you about the government and how it functions, and inform you about the daily happenings in Carson and how it impacts your life. I'd like to introduce my co-host for the day, John Hollaway. John, please tell us something about yourself.
Well, been in California now for 40 years. That's a long time. Left Detroit, Michigan, and from Michigan State University, and then finished up at Dominguez Hills University. Been a resident of Carson, like I say, for 40 years. And a few years ago, about 3 years ago, I noticed that the community is so divided by just culture and race and this and that. So I had an idea with Carson 411, the community Facebook group, to bring the community together and all the things that divide us, to kind of bring those walls down through activities, through community involvement, getting our law enforcement involved, getting our politicians involved, business owners, business leaders, community leaders and stuff, and people like yourself, Sharma, and then bring these people together. So it's been going well. We got over 83,000, we wish. We got over 8,300 members now, and that goes anywhere from law enforcement to politicians to gardeners to business owners to senior citizens, just regular people. And we actually bringing people together. So we've got a really tight-knit community on Carson 411. And so, and we're having fun with it. Not to mention, we added a Facebook subset of Carson 411, which is the Sunset Riders and the Sunset Walkers. So people can get together and ride their bikes every Tuesday and Thursday and also walk as well. So
awesome.
In a nutshell.
Thank you for joining us. And we have a second co-host, Mrs. Jackie Momoli. Please introduce yourself.
Hello, everyone. I am Jackie Momoli, and I have been a long-time Carson resident since 1960. And I love this city, and I love what the city represents for the community. And I look forward to continue to help the community and do my part to advance up our city.
Thank you. Both Jackie and John serve on our steering committee for Carson Accountability and Transparency. And for those who are unaware, I proudly serve as the president of our organization. So let's move into today's podcast. We're super excited. I have to say, Captain Jones, before I do your official intro, you're popular because we have co-hosts on our podcast for the first time. So that's how important you are to our community. So you're changing the game already. So today, as our guest, we have Captain Damon Jones of the Carson Sheriff Station. Thank you so much for joining us. Captain Jones is a 26-year veteran of the LA County Sheriff's Department. He previously served as a deputy and sergeant at the Carson Station. Welcome, Captain Jones, and thank you so much for being with us today. You're on mute, so take yourself off mute, please.
Thank you. Hello. I'm just blessed and thankful that you guys chose to reach out and speak with me today and allow me to come speak with you guys today. And like you said, luckily I have a relationship already with you all. John, how's that bike ride? What day are you at? I remember looking, you were like at 100-some days straight or something like that.
Oh my God. So guess what? Yesterday was 290 days straight.
All right.
290 days. So in this month, it'll be 300. Then July the 4th, we meeting at Juicy Juice, and Councilman Hilton and the rest, a lot of us getting together, and we're going to do a little small community bike ride.
Okay.
It'll be 365 days. So it's still going. I can't break it now.
All right. Keep it going.
We'll be sure to add the link to Carson 411 on the end of the video.
Good.
So that viewers can join the group if they're not already a member, and then they can also get information about your subgroups with the Sunset Riders and the Sunset Walkers. So yeah, I'm excited. I remember when it was 100 days, and now you're pushing for 365. So it's all good stuff. All right, so let's go into our interview. So Captain Jones.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us a little bit about yourself. Who are you? And how do the residents of Carson know who you are?
All right. So like you said, I've been on the department for 26 years. I've worked a variety of jobs, either in patrol, in our custody environments, and a lot of specialized units. I've also as we have what's called a sheriff response team, which responds to protests and large gatherings, even does the big events, Super Bowls and all those different things. And I've been at every level and on that team also. And as you guys know, starting in 2020 with the George Floyd incident, it was pretty much a protest every day for an entire year. And I was pretty much out there for 18 hours a day, almost at each one of those protests. So that, so I have a lot of experience. That's as far as work. I have a good foundation from working all those different jobs. It's put me in contact with a lot of different people, which has been actually a benefit. Although we were out there, like, for example, you take the protests and work in patrol, and yeah, we have a responsibility to enforce crime and crime enforcement and everything, as well as to keep the peace. But part of what I enjoyed the most is just the conversations with some of the people that I've come in contact with. It's helped build some of those foundations. And as you said earlier, I've worked here on 3 different levels. This is my 3rd tour at Carson Station. I was here as a deputy in the early 2000s, came back as a sergeant in 2010, stayed for about 4 years. And then, lucky enough to be blessed and get chosen through all the tough competition as the captain January last year. A little bit about myself is I'm a cup is half full type person. I believe in not dwelling on the past, and I believe in moving forward. I like being a leader, responsible. I enjoy my job as being a role model and encouraging and supporting others. A little bit about also, I think I have a great perception on the city of Carson as well as the surrounding community. One, because I did actually grow up here in the city of Carson, so I have ties, I have friends and family here, so I totally understand the community. I've been involved in a lot of community groups, a lot of community events, a lot of just things going on in the community. And so I have that community ownership. It's not just a job here for me. I have my degree. I have my bachelor's degree. I'm married. I have 3 adult children who are all in college. I've played sports my entire life. So that's kind of like the pillar in my life is sports, because it's taught discipline, it's taught camaraderie, it's taught sportsmanship, it's taught, just working with others, as well as I've coached my entire life, either softball, basketball, or football, up until about 2 years ago. So I've always enjoyed pouring back into young people. In my free time, I'm kind of a concert junkie as well as comedy show junkie. So I go to like concerts and comedy shows with my wife. I like volunteering, like I said, and playing basketball and working out and spending time with my family. So that's a little bit about me and how I've got here.
Wonderful, wonderful. So tell us, for those who aren't aware, we know that you have the sheriff deputies and we know that you have captains and things like that, but what exactly does a sheriff department captain do? What services do you provide? What kind of issues and concerns do you specifically address as captain of the department?
Okay, good question. Very good question. So as you said, we all have different roles in the organization, at the station. We all have different responsibilities. Initially, the role as a station captain, what we call a unit commander, is I got to just be flexible. You have to have a great deal of flexibility because things are constantly changing. There's people you constantly got to keep in contact with or different things. As a captain also, you have to have a vision. And me personally, my vision and my management philosophy is one that involves community policing as well as community service. I think that plays such an important role in making sure that I pass that down and that we lead and we have that as our what our ultimate goal is, because I think we're responsible to ensure that we provide that public service. It's my job as the captain to promote that organizational excellence. Things I have to be concerned about are the deployment of how many cars, how many deputies we have out in the field. Is it the right amount? Are we have the right resources out? Are we mitigating to whatever crimes may be happening at the time? I think we all know that catalytic converter thefts were taken off all throughout California and the entire country. So it was important for me as a captain to sit down with my management team and say, hey, you know what? Is there a way we may need to deploy an extra unit out at those peak times when it appears we have people out maybe looking to steal catalytic converters? Or is there a certain area where the crime is happening at a certain time? So it's important as a captain that I have to make sure I'm doing those things. Another thing as a captain, I have to show the willingness to involve the residents in the decision making, like participating in things like this podcast, because it's important that we get the residents' input on fixing some of the issues that occur. It also helps strengthen the relationship with our residents. As a captain, it's important that I touch base with our faith-based units because a lot of our ministers and our faith-based folks in our community, they're constantly hearing, because people are pouring into them and talking to them when they're dealing with issues or whatever. So that's some of the best people for me to talk to on figuring out what really is going on in the community, as well as touching bases with our community members. I don't know if you guys saw, I mentioned it last night. They mentioned it on Fox TV last night on the news. But we went out, thanks for some of our supporters in the community. Jackie and Dr. Sharma, you guys are part of the foundation, and thanks for support like the foundation and some other things. We were able to go out yesterday and we went to Ralph's, went to Shell, went to Target, as well as we went to Norm's, and we were able to hand out gas cards, give out some gift cards for some folks as they were paying for their grocery, because we all see the gas and the food prices are astronomical.
Right.
So that's part of my role as the captain also. Some of the things also is, obviously there's a city management, and we fall in the second district under the Board of Supervisors. So I have to constantly communicate with the city council, constantly communicate with the mayor, constantly communicate with the city manager and the Board of Supervisors, because at the end of the day, those folks actually are funding the resources and the deputies and the tools. And so I have to ensure that I'm communicating with them and stand within a budget. It would be great if I can just put, 20 deputies out each shift, every place, and we can be in every location, but unfortunately we can't. So I have to prioritize those obligations and those responsibilities to make sure we're doing our best as possible and stay within that budget, but also at the same time, provide the service that the county as well as the city of Carson is paying for. As the captain also, I have a responsibility to mentor. I can't just be about me making sure I do my job, but I think I have to treat it like, am I mentoring those who work under me to grow, actually to take ownership, to have leadership, and I have to show that I trust them and help build them up, because if I do that, then they're going to have the same mindset as me, and we collectively as a group can go out and provide the best service to the community. And then I have to hold myself accountable as well as hold my deputies accountable. As a captain, we're not perfect. There are things sometimes we can change, either personnel-wise, sometimes the way we do our service. So I have to address complaints from the community and make sure I address any officer misconduct. And then, as a captain, guess what? It's not always roses, but I have to enjoy the hard days just as much as I enjoy the good days. Mm-hmm. And just make sure that the effort is always there, that we are doing our part to help the community. And then lastly, even though we're this big department, we do try to recruit deputies who reflect this community. As John mentioned earlier, it's a makeup of different communities. We got everything from Asian American to the Filipino community to Hispanic community, Black community, and Caucasian community. So we want to make sure when we are out there and we have our deputies who are leaving the courts or leaving the jails to come to patrol, that we're recruiting deputies who reflect this community. So that's another one of my responsibilities as the captain. But lastly, I just, as a captain, have to make sure that I'm leading the way to create an environment for our youth, our elderly, our families in our community to feel safe, to blossom, and make sure they feel inspired to go on and dream. Because as the captain, when some people say chief of police of the city or unit commander, I am ultimately the ambassador of safety for everyone who resides in our city or comes to our city or the surrounding areas. That's my role in that as a captain. And I think the last part you asked was what services do we provide or what kind of things, something like that you asked. And that's a good question, Dr. Henderson. Obviously, the station provides routine patrol. We're out there every day and being visible and everything. But we also have a detective unit that investigates these crimes, who takes pride in making sure we have the highest solve rate as possible. We have traffic officers, investigators. As you know, we're very close to the port. We got every major freeway here, so there's trucks constantly coming through. And so we have traffic investigators and traffic detail who take highway safety very safe who are out there. We have narcotics and gang detectives who are working on trying to deal with those issues. And as we know, the narcotics issue, the substance abuse, and as well as the mental ill and homeless, those things all kind of tie in together. And we have community relations, which does an outstanding job of partnering, reaching out. I think a lot of you guys have dealt with our community relations office.
Yes.
As far as people wanting to be involved, we always are recruiting and looking for people to join our volunteer program, children or kids to youth to join our Explorer program. We're looking for reserves, our clergy, as well as we offer what's called a gang diversion team program. And it's an intervention program where children don't necessarily have to be in a gang, but if parents, teachers, concerned people see them starting to make some of those bad decisions or go down that wrong route, we are encouraging them to get them involved in our intervention gang diversion team program, because we have a system we think is set in place where we have some students who come from some of the universities, as well as we have some other contacts in the community where we're reaching out and we're trying to reach those kids where they are and show them the brighter way, the other side, and how to make the right decisions when they come to those forks in the road, when they come under that peer pressure, how to help them, understand how to lean on their morals and principles and have a backbone and do the right thing. We offer ride-alongs, as well as we have a lot of outreach events that we do throughout the year. And then the last part, I think you asked, how can our residents get involved? At the end of the day, what you guys are doing, playing a part, taking part, being engaged, looking out for our youth, looking out for our elderly. And we wish we could be on every corner, but we realize we can't. So like that saying says, if you see something, say something, because we truly believe the great citizens of the city of Carson and our surrounding areas, they are our eyes and ears, and we take what you share with us very seriously.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to add for our residents, as you know, I'm very actively involved with the station, and I happen to live in a particular area where you guys get a lot of calls from me and others. And I just want to let residents know that the station deputies, they do a really good job of protecting the safety and the security of people who call, because a lot of times people are scared to call, they're scared to report. I have a lot of people who won't call at all. They call me, and then I end up having to give a report on something I haven't directly seen. But because I have that relationship, they will respond, and I'll tell them, look, somebody's calling me, telling me this is going on. I can't tell you the ethnicity. Let me call them back and find out whatever, but just to give people that security to know that when it comes to having security footage from your camera to making a phone call, you can do it. They'll ask you your name, but you can do it anonymously. They're very careful about how they display security footage to protect the identity and the location of your camera. Excuse me. So I just put that out there on the back end of people turning in folks and reporting crime, because that's really the only way that's we're going to get more safety in our community, is by us as residents stepping up and reporting what we see and working in partnership with our deputies. So thank you for bringing that up. And real quick, can you just tell us how many deputies are there and what does that look like? Because I know that you cover Carson, City of Carson and West Carson. And what does that look like in terms of the spread? Like how many deputies are out at any given time?
So Carson Station, we're allocated for 224 personnel, which is 185 sworn deputies, 39 professional staff deputies. On an average day, we fill all our cars. We have 30 units that go out on an average day. And obviously that's 3 shifts. We have day shift, PM shift, and then early morning shift. Obviously, more people are asleep, not as much traffic. So the early morning shift, which is usually 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. or, somewhere around there. Not as many units as we would have during the day shift or PM shift. And then that also can change on the weekend, where during the week, maybe down in our south end where some of our industrial areas, we may have more units because we have the businesses constantly going, where a lot of those industrial businesses are closed on the weekend, so we adjust accordingly. But like I said, on average, we have about 30 units that are on routine patrol daily, and that's just handling calls for service. But in addition to that, we also have special assignment officers that you guys may see sometimes. They don't usually have like the regular uniform on. You'll see them sometimes with an outer carrier vest or whatever, and they work on a lot of time quality of life issues, or is there a specific issue going on? Let's just say, for example, we see that there's speed racing going on, or people running a stop sign, or whatever the issue may be. Well, they'll work on that maybe particular issue for a week or two and move on to another issue that the city may be seeing. We also have a host deputies, which is our homeless outreach deputies. We have 2 deputies dedicated to that, thanks to the city sponsoring that and giving us funding for that. And all they deal with is dealing with those who are dealing with suffering with homelessness, to try to get them connected with services or get them addressed appropriately. And then the city also provides us with parks team deputies. So we have 2 parks team deputies 7 days a week who are here to go give safety at all our various parks. And then there's a school resource deputy, which is here Monday through Friday to help with any school issues. And that school resource deputy has been very busy as of late, because I think you guys may have seen last year sometime I don't know if it was the LA City or Department or LA Unified School Police decided to do a little, what they say, defunding, but cut back on the school police, which would have normally been at our LA Unified Schools. So now when a lot of those issues, our school resource deputy is being called primarily to handle a lot of those issues.
Wow, that's a lot of coverage. Thank you for sharing.
Yes.
I'm going to throw it over to John. He's going to take the next set of questions.
Okay. Captain.
Sir.
Run through a few questions for you. First of all, major congratulations again. I met with Commander Scheme the other day at the Whittier Star Academy. I'm down there for a quick minute. So my question is, we get a lot of concern. Well, first of all, to me, the homeless population in Carson is not as bad as most surrounding cities. Especially when we do our bike rides, we see the worst of it. But the question is, can anything be done about people living in their vehicles and parking and shopping, and especially parking in these shopping centers? Can you give us an update on how you guys are monitoring the homeless situation? I know this one situation when Jennifer was here and Captain Scheme at the time, and we've got one particular family that's drawing a lot of interest. And I don't want to really put them out there like that because there's kids involved, and I'm sure you guys are aware of it. But I rode my bike the other night about 10 o'clock at night, and they was actually sleeping up on the blanket on the side of the road. And I went by to check on them, and they know me. The kids know me. They call me Juanito, and I always see if they need anything. What's going on with how you guys are addressing that? I know some of them we spoke before, especially down there by the 99-cent stores. Some things you just keep it occurring. It's not a whole lot you can do. Where are you guys with that?
It's a good question, John. So I kind of go in a couple pieces. I'll start with kind of one of the situations you kind of brought up. That one particular situation with the lady with her children and everything, we continue to reach out to her. We've actually brought the folks from LASA, which is the Los Angeles homeless reach out folks. We've actually brought them directly to her. Unfortunately, she at this time is not open to taking services, but our team continues to reach out to her. My deputies have on multiple occasions went and taken McDonald's to her, as well as gift cards to try to help her and her children. But for some reason, she's a little reluctant to take any type of services that we have offered to her. But we're going to continue to try at that. Moving to the 99-cent issue, and we've had this talk in the past. A lot of those folks, they aren't technically, I guess you would say, homeless. Because if you notice, at about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, they disappear from that shopping center.
Right, they go home.
They go home to a family home. But what we found is because of either their mental state or their trouble they're having with their substance, the family doesn't want them in the home during the day. So when they're not at home during the day, they're at that particular shopping center, begging for a coin or whatever, or begging for $1 or begging for food or whatever, or in some cases just hanging out. Yes, we work with the security up at that shopping center a lot to try to get them from soliciting and get them off the property. But what we found is most of them aren't homeless. They actually have somewhere they go to at the end of the night. And then a few of them, there are folks in the community who kind of, if you give a cat some food, what's the cat going to do? Continue to come back. So we have some folks in the community who have kind hearts and they feel sorry, and we totally get it because, we all want to be empathetic and sympathetic, but they continue to give to some of those folks. So then it kind of works backwards when we're trying to dissuade them from wanting to hang out in front of some of those businesses. But dealing with the homeless as a whole, we always try to remember it's not a crime to be homeless. And we want to make sure we never violate the rights of those who are dealing with homeless. But we tell everyone, if you see someone sleeping in a parking lot, sleeping out in a car, out that's homeless, whatever, please do not hesitate. Reach out to our station. Initially, a deputy may respond out to investigate it, but they'll be sure to pass that information on to our homeless team that I was telling you about earlier, because our homeless outreach team, like I said, their sole job is to reach out to them and get them connected with services and hopefully get them placed in some type of housing, because they have those assets, they know those people, and they understand how to deal with those who are dealing with either substance abuse, mental illness, disability, autism, or some type of financial challenge. But we're going to continue to try to regulate that public space, make sure people don't feel that the homeless, those who are suffering from homelessness, are being intrusive to them. But at the same time, we're going to make sure we don't violate their rights and arrest.
Absolutely. We love to join hands with you too, because the family we talked about earlier, we actually, I got a call from Dana Anderson, who was the superintendent of public schools in District West now. She introduced me I had a call from Channel 7 News who wanted to do a special on the lady with the kids.
Okay.
She turned it down, but it was an opportunity to raise a ton of money, because when I first met them, she was actually sitting on the couch in front of a house off 213 doing the homework with all 4 of her kids. It's three boys and a girl. And so she turned it down. She will open up to me a little bit. She will act like she don't speak a lot of English, but my Spanish is decent. But there's not a whole lot we can do, because she's happy where she is. And then unfortunately she got her car. I don't know I'm sure you may have heard, they impounded her vehicle.
So I did not hear, but I do know that our deputies, I guess some people would say, went spirit of the law for a long, long time, because we did not want that to happen.
Right.
And we tried to do everything we can so that did not happen. But no, I didn't know that. This is the first I'm hearing that the car.
Yeah, so that's why they're sleeping on. That's why they're sleeping on the side.
Okay. Now, that makes sense.
I'm going to move on to the next question. It's about catalytic converters. You talked about this being it's not, what I realized about this, and most people, hopefully they know that it's just not a Carson problem. It's not a California problem. It's not a United States problem. It's a world problem. They are stealing these all over the world. And now they fake. I was going on Avalon riding my bike about 2 or 3 weeks ago down there by you, Sharma, and I heard somebody dragging one of those hydraulic jacks. Broad daylight, about 10 to 11 o'clock a.m. These 2 guys, and they even put on a vest. They looked like they was working on like one of those reflective vests, and they was dragging it. They was cutting it, and I turned around, made a U-turn, and I chased them as far as I can chase them, but they took off and they got caught in that little maze. So I went back to knock on the doors of the people and let them know, hey, somebody just stole your converter, and they didn't answer. I couldn't get past the gate, and I would just say, hey, just trying to get their attention. But you guys are doing etching time to time at the. My only concern with that, I'm just a realist, Captain. That's after the fact. It's a before the fact etching, after the fact, because at night when these guys are stealing these catalytic converters, they ain't looking for etching. That's if you guys recover it, catch them, and then you can see that this is maybe long term. But by that time, most people can't you can't drive without a catalytic converter, so they already got to repair. So what are you doing if you catch them with these etch converters? You return it back to the owner, or you just go into a pile, or what's actually happening with that?
So it's been a little bit of both. And you're right. The etching event is not necessarily a prevention thing. It's more of us being able to identify victims so that we can get prosecution. Because what we found from the district attorney's office is when we've caught people with, multiple catalytic converters in their possession, unfortunately, they haven't been able to identify who the victim was. So it's been more of on the back end of the prosecution.
Oh, gotcha.
But on the prevention aspect of it, though, the etching events have been beneficial in the sense of we've been able to share a lot of vehicle safety information.
Okay.
Some basic things, just folks on reminding them to lock their vehicles, reminding them to try to park in a driveway as possible, in a garage if possible, in a well-lit area if possible, park in an area that has more traffic rather than an isolated area. Set an alarm if you have an alarm, put a club on. And so that's where they've been beneficial in that aspect. What we've done to try to prevent the catalytic converter is we do talk to our crime analysts, and we're looking at, hey, what time of days are these happening? Are there particular areas in our city? Because as you know, we have a big city that we cover, and we've done some specialized undercover operations. Some have been fruitful where they've worked and our timing was right, and we've caught some folks in the middle of trying to steal catalytic converters. And some, because I think at times it's crime of opportunity, they have not necessarily been fruitful. But we're continue to stay active in it. And like I mentioned earlier, like you just saw, when you see something, it's not normal for someone to be walking down the street with a floor jack in the middle of the day. So when you see something of that nature, please, sir, please, ma'am, give us a call. Let us go investigate it. Hey, if the guys happen to just be realistic, their car broke down, so be it. We'll dust them off, say we're sorry, and we'll push them on their good day. But I'd rather that than someone sees it and says, that doesn't look right, and doesn't call. And now we have these individuals who are pretty much in plain sight stealing catalytic converters or committing some other crime, and no one said anything about it.
I got a question. What you say would be an uptick in it, or is it dropping, or is it just pretty much staying the same?
So I wish it was lower than this, but we have a 2% decrease. I looked at our numbers earlier this week, and catalytic converter thefts in our patrol area, we have a 2% decrease. I'll take any decrease because that means we're going in the right direction, but just not as much as I would like to say. But
they got me once too, so
yeah.
I know what it feels like. Yeah.
But I will say crime as a whole is down 12% in our entire patrol area.
Okay. Last question on that. Once you catch the people, and I'm assuming I know how you guys do your work. I started off with you guys at the Star Academy as a recruit. Mm-hmm. Are you guys squeezing them to tell you? Because if you turn off the people that buy it, if you get to the people that's buying these stolen converters, because I heard on the radio that Steve Harvey was saying, look, if somebody show up at your business with 10 catalytic converters, it's obviously stolen. Are you guys? I'm assuming that's part of the investigative process is when you catch them to get them to tell who they selling them to.
Yeah. So we have a major crimes unit that their specific task force. They have a task force that's just dealing with catalytic converter thefts. Okay. And it's a multi-agency task force. They got CHP as well as LAPD in it. And they're working collectively and trying to identify. But as you know, John, it's not just the one place. It's about 40 to 50 different people that they take it to, because there's a process. They take it to them, they strip it down, they then take it to the next person who will melt down those precious metals, and they put it almost to a sand. And then from there, from what I'm hearing, it's going over to Europe or across the country or somewhere else. And that's where the big money is coming in. I did a big special with Channel 2 News myself, as well as our major crimes unit sometime last year. And we talked about in detail how this works and why, unfortunately, some of these scrap metal places, for them, it's worth the risk, because they're saying, hey, look how much money I can make either under the table or on the black market. And, the risk of me being convicted is very limited or whatever it may be. Yeah. So.
We've been hearing that there's a trend about people siphoning gas. To me, that's a little bit take a little longer process than doing the catalytic converter. They can have it off in 2 minutes. Siphoning gas will take a lot longer than that, because you're not trying to siphon for a little bit of gas. You're trying to get as much as you can. Are we facing any of those? I haven't heard anything in Carson about it, but I have heard that is happening right now in different places.
So we haven't had, I checked with our crime analysts as well as our detective units. I have no reports of someone, actually siphoning gas from people's personal vehicles. We have had a few cases where we've arrested or taken people to jail who were using stolen credit cards or stolen ATM cards at some of our local gas stations. And, it either alerted the folks inside the cash register working at the gas station, and they called us. So we were able to, arrest a few folks there, as well as, we had some folks report that their their ATM or credit cards were stolen. And then, from the detectives doing their good detective work, we were able to identify some suspects and make arrests there. But as far as siphoning, we haven't had any issues.
Okay.
We did have one report last year. You may have seen it on our social media because we put it out there. Some guy at the gas station off of 223rd and Fig, he pulled up, big white flatbed truck, had a bunch of 5-gallon barrels, and he had about 50 stolen credit cards, and he was just filling those barrels up with gas. He had about 2,000 gallons of gas when we got there, and he still was trying to fill up more. But luckily, we were able to arrest him. But as you know, that was like a hazard. So we had to shut down the whole area, call the fire department, call our arson explosives, because one wrong thing, that would have just lit up like a firebomb. So, but yeah, that's all, any gas siphoning or gas stealing issues we've had.
Okay. For the next few questions, is that Jackie?
Yes.
Go ahead, dear.
Okay. Hi, Captain Jones. How are you?
Hi, Jackie. How are you?
I am wonderful. Thank you for asking. Okay. My question is, what is the average response time to a service call?
Very good question. So the department, we break our service calls up into 3 different categories. We have emergent calls, which are, a child not breathing or, active assault or something going on at that moment. Then we have what we call priority calls. We may be a family disturbance where, we need to get there quickly, but we don't need to get there necessarily with lights and sirens. And then we have our routine calls, someone call and say, hey, my car was broken into last night. So when you average that out as a whole, our response time is 29 minutes as a whole when you put all that together. But when you break it down, our response time to those emergent calls is 4 minutes. Our response time to those priority calls is 8 minutes. And then our response time on average to those routine report calls is 38 minutes. And then on average, the station responds to an average of 190 service calls per day.
Wow.
Okay, thank you for that. And my next question is, what should residents expect when they call in to report suspicious activity?
So like Dr. Sharma Henderson mentioned earlier, obviously we're going to ask you some of those basic questions, a description of what you're seeing, of the suspect, of the vehicle, if there's a license plate number, or any information that we feel may be helpful or anything that you can add. But we also will do everything we can to protect your safety. So that law enforcement technician or that dispatcher, they may ask you, hey, ma'am, hey, sir, would you like to be contacted? And you can say, no, I want to stay anonymous. Or you can even say, hey, you know what, I want to stay anonymous, but is there a way maybe I can call back later on just to get an update? Because, we never want to put your safety in jeopardy. But the deputies will respond. They'll investigate it just to see if there's a crime occurring. And then there is a possibility, let's say you call about a prowler or a suspicious person, and then we get there, and then it appears that someone's in the backyard or is committing a burglary at the time. We may call you back to try to get additional information or to tell you to make sure you shelter in place, lock your doors, or if do you have any phone numbers for the neighbor, if there's a possibility we saw him go in the other yard so we can maybe contact them. But that's what will occur if you call to report something such as a suspicious person.
Okay, thank you. Have the monetary rewards for information leading to murders in Carson been effective in helping detectives solve those crimes?
Rewards, in a perfect world, you would see a reward and people were like, yes, money, I can get some free money here. Here's all the information I know. But as we know, unfortunately, there's these quote unquote street rules, street codes, and they don't always prove to be as effective as we would like them to be. They are an effective tool. They have been helpful. But, the turnaround and the return on them sometimes is not as quick or fast or what we would like it to be. I will say, though, they have been fruitful, maybe not necessarily always in solving a crime, but they've been helpful in giving us some information that's helped us as a whole to do a better job of providing police services, or to help start some conversations and help us solve some other issues and make sure some of those cases do not go cold.
Thank you, Captain Jones. John?
Captain Jones, I have two more questions for you, then we're going to go back to Jackie, and Sharma's going to finish up. My next question is with regard to gang activity, what you say is it somewhat contained or more serious of the problem? Being from Carson, I feel like for 40 years, longer than I've been in Detroit, you hear a lot of things. At the same time, some of the beefs been going on for a long time, but now they seem like some of these new beefs are coming from outside the city to inside the city, our city. So to that point is the gang activity about the same? I know you guys have a specialized unit for gangs. Are we making any traction in those areas? Because when Captain Scheme was at back in the day, I kind of told him at one of the meetings, town hall meetings, I was like, why don't we try to first fix our problem here in the city, and some of the leaders of these gangs in the neighborhood, maybe we can get a sit down with them at an undisclosed location, and then try to temper these long Hatfield and McCoy traditional beefs, and because people are losing lives. We hear about some of the killings that happened recently. And it's a couple not too far from my house shootings, and it's so random that it's unfortunate that whenever we stand out in the front, this is really a sad that whenever we stand out in the front talking to our neighbors, we can't have our back to the street, and it's to that point where it's pretty much I'm in the backyard right now. It's pretty much nerve-wracking because I watch a lot of even adults now are afraid to have their back to the street, and every time a car drives down the street, there's this sense of, oh my God, this could be one of those moments. And then yesterday we rode our bikes through Cerritos. We decided to do a trip through Cerritos, and we were me and Christian and some of the other Sunset Riders, and we were just noticing, look at, you kind of let your guard down. And we need to get to a point in Carson where we can let our guard down. And I think that's the ultimate goal. We drove through Bixby Knolls, and we get the same thing. We can let our guard down while we're riding. So with the gang activity, are we seeing any traction, or is it just more of a serious problem than where we're at with you guys? And I know you guys are always on it, but where we at with that, with the gang activity?
Good question. We wish we had zero gang activity. But unfortunately, like you said, some of this is deeply rooted and is coming from issues that have been long standing. What we have found, and some of the gang issues or disagreements, shootings, and different things that have been happening, some of it hasn't been the traditional. We have some of our up north gangs who constantly go at each other, and then we have some of our down south gangs who constantly go at each other. But what we found recently is some of the issues have been from gangs outside of our city of Carson, who've had some issues or had some disagreements or with some of our local gangs. As well as we found that some of the issues have been within gang. We had a recent gang shooting, and it happened to be relatives who both were from the same gang. Because part of the issues we're seeing with all the gangs is with a lot of the gangs, there's not necessarily a hierarchy. We hear all this time, there's this hierarchy. There really isn't a hierarchy in some of them. So when it's, as they call, baby gangster becomes of age and feels like he's strong enough, he says, you know what? I'm not listening to the OG, as they may say. I'm going to call the shots, or I'm going to try to sell my dope on this corner, or whatever it may be. And he's not going to be able to, try to take my money or say I got to pay taxes or whatever it may be. So we found some of the issues have been actually within the own set of gangs, which have not been the traditional issue, problem that we dealt with. Like you said, our gang unit is staying on top of it. I will say our gang crimes are down as a whole. So far, year to date, we've had 8 gang-related shootings in our city. We wish that was 0, and we've had 1 gang-related murder. And we're doing everything we can and working with our gang unit as well as our SAO teams to make sure, hopefully, none of those numbers grow. But we just can't be everywhere. But the other part that we've been pushing is we've been talking to parents and talking to guardians and talking to those who have influence on some of our youth and saying, hey, ma'am, hey, sir, sometimes we are aware of what our children are doing. Absolutely. And sometimes we either look the other way or we try to justify, but we need you, sir, we need you, ma'am, to stand up and say, no, little Johnny, little Janie, whatever it is, that's not being unacceptable. We're not standing for that, because we think what happens is when we know sometimes who's doing what and we don't say anything, we're all in so many words, we're encouraging it.
Amen.
So that's a big part what we've been pushing, as well as, like I said, our gang diversion team has been working a lot also on those who may be involved in gangs or those who are going down the wrong direction to try to steer them from going that way.
Would you ever be interested in doing like lunch at the park? I think Captain Scheme did a little while. He'd go to the park and we invite a few people over. Actually, we vet them and other deputies can be there. And just sometime when some of the move around parks, I don't know, once a month. And then, people can just come and sit down and get to know you. Would that be something you'd be interested in doing down the line?
Yes, actually, I've done it a few times. Matter of fact, our last one was right before, you met him. It was Lieutenant Jabari at the time, but he just promoted to Captain Jabari Williams. He's over at Altadena. Him and I went, met with some folks. Even Councilman Hicks was out there. We met at Mills Park and just hung out with some folks. So, yeah, that's something I'm always open to do.
It's very, very important. And I think, you give me your opinion. I don't think it's in your realm of responsibility to push the agenda, to make the agenda happen. But for years, I've been pushing, if we can put, and I even labeled me and I sent it to Jawan, every entryway and exit way into like a certain part of Carson, like say Delamo. And if we was able to get surveillance cameras on those corners that kind of register cars that come and go, I think it'll shut down a lot of the drive-bys because they know they have to eventually go out that exit. Because there's only so many exits into, like I think on
certain community, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
yeah, you like for example, you take up north, you got Termont, Ellesmere on the north side. On the other side, you got Helmet. So yeah, I get exactly what you're saying.
So if they come in, they got to get out. So we got 2 chances to get the license plate number.
The city is aware of it. We've been in constant conversation with it. The city agrees with me. We need to incorporate technology in helping with our crime management. And then it was end of last year, the city put together a package and they reached out, and I know that they put it out to different public safety surveillance system companies for them to submit a proposal for upgrading the current ones as well as installing new ones. So I don't know where that is in that RFP process, but they did put it out and put a package together so that we can move to the next phase of trying to see what the funding looks like, how much that would take, and then what would be the best and most appropriate technology as we try to start putting cameras up in different parts of the city.
Are drones used by the Sheriff's Department, and if so, for what purpose? Some residents living close to the Carson Civic Center knows in the evening what looks like drones circling the area. So you guys, just people, or somebody else.
Carson Sheriff Station does not use drones. We do not use drones. Our department as a whole actually doesn't even really use drones. Our SEB, which is like our SWAT team, and maybe they have like a barricade situation or some of that nature, they may use they'll use a drone, but you'll know if there's SEB is out for some barricade situations, because we would have had people evacuate out of homes, we would shut down the area or just some of that nature. But just on a natural, regularly everyday basis, we do not use drones. We have been discussing with the city in the future of possibly using some drones when it comes to enforcement fireworks or illegal shooting,
Right.
obviously New Year's, 4th of July, those nature. But at this moment, no, we do not use drones.
Okay, so can I make a report? That must be my ex then, because there's a drone at my ex. Okay, you said
your ex must be watching me too, because they had him over here.
No, that's your ex. So you said SAB. The acronym SAB, was that?
SAB, our Special Enforcement Bureau, which is like our SWAT team. Let's say they had a barricade situation and they want to try to get better eyes to see something a little better. Then they may use a drone just to give them a better vision because, they want to try to be as efficient as possible to have something come to a peaceful ending hopefully without hurting that suspect or individual.
Okay, well, Jackie, bring it home.
Okay, Captain Jones, sometimes we see helicopters hovering around our neighborhoods. Does this likely mean that there's a search going on?
Yes, that most likely does. But that search can vary from different type of searches. That could be a helicopter searching either for a missing person. And a lot of times for the missing person, you may even hear them give out something over the PA. They'll say, hey, we're looking for, John Doe, male black, 14 years of age, last seen wearing green pants or tan shirt. So that could be either searching for a missing person. It could be, hovering because there's a burglary in progress, or, a suspicious person, or it can even be, let's say we got a high risk traffic stop. We got some individuals who just robbed, some store or whatever, and it's a car full of individuals and the deputies do a felony traffic stop. Well, you may see the helicopter hover over until we safely remove all those folks from that vehicle and make sure that there's no one else inside the vehicle. So yes, usually if you see a helicopter hovering, it's some type of containment or some type of activity going on.
I just want to quickly add that it's important that residents listen because, as you said, not only do they talk about who they're looking for, but they'll alert you and tell you that there's someone being chased, to lock your doors, don't answer the door, and then they'll give an all clear. So it's important to pay attention to that because I've had several times where I hear them saying specifically, make sure you go inside your homes, lock your doors. We'll give you an all clear when it's safe to come out. Do we appreciate that? Go ahead, Jackie.
Okay, last one for me, Captain Jones, is there are several parks in Carson. How is park security conducted by the sheriffs? Is there a park patrol? There was a park patrol that was established some years back. Does that still exist?
Yes, ma'am. We still have our parks team. We have 4 dedicated deputies who are on our parks team. Thanks to the support of our city manager and our mayor and city council, they've provided the funding to make sure that we keep that parks team available. And like I mentioned earlier, 7 days a week, you have parks team deputies here to give safety as well as touch bases with our park directors as well as the staff working at the parks. And they're there all the way around contacting those park workers and building a relationship with them. And they regularly conduct patrol checks there. But in addition to just our parks deputies, our deputies who are driving around in the community, going to calls for service, many times they'll do a patrol check or stop at the parks to write a report just to be that visibility and be in the area.
So I wanted to make note for our residents who are watching about the distinction on having the Carson Sheriff Station as opposed to a city-run police services, because some cities have their own police departments and they get their services provided that way. We as a city, we contract with the sheriff's department and that's how we get our services. So I just want them to note that distinction. And so there are some good things that allow us to have the power of the sheriff department with our law enforcement behind that. And it creates a partnership in terms of providing public safety in ways that you don't necessarily have. And I think in some ways, there's lots of controversy about, law enforcement and things like that. We in Carson, we don't tend to experience a lot of that negativity between community and our deputies. I'm so very grateful and appreciative of that. And I know that speaks to our leadership. Would you like to say a little bit something about that?
No, that's great. She's right. The city has chosen to contract their law enforcement services with the sheriff's department. And I'll give a little background because people always say, what's the difference between police and sheriffs? At the end of the day, we're all law enforcement officers, but a particular police agency. So let's just take a neighboring city, Torrance PD. Torrance PD, those officers, they only work patrol in the city of Torrance. That's all they provide. So you take the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department, we're the largest sheriff's department in the world and the second largest law enforcement agency in the entire country. So we're responsible for not only doing patrol in the various contract cities. So you take like the city of Carson, city of Compton, city of Linwood, Marina Del Rey, city of Cerritos, city of Pico Rivera, Norwalk. Those are all contract cities who contract out law enforcement services with the sheriff's department rather than have their own their own police agency. But in addition to providing patrol to the various cities that we're contracted on, the sheriff's department is also responsible for working the jails throughout LA County. So, the major one everyone knows about, Man Central Jail or Twin Towers, or our various jails up at Wayside, up in by Magic Mountain. We're also responsible for being the bailiff and doing security at all the courts in LA County. We're responsible for transportation of all these individuals who are arrested to and from court or to other stations or to other counties, or once they're sentenced and sent to state prison, we're responsible to take them up to state prison. But we're also responsible for the LA City colleges. So LA Southwest College, Harbor College, LA City College, Valley College, Pierce College. We're responsible for that also. So we got the courts, we got the jails, the community colleges, as well as we do the patrol in the cities that we contracted upon. And those contracts go all the way as far north as Palmdale, Lancaster, all the way down to Cerritos or Industry. Walnut would be more on our east end. But the services that benefit the city of Carson by being contracted with the sheriff's department is you have our homicide unit, our gang unit, our narcotics unit, our major crimes unit, our financial crimes unit. All those come as the package deal. So if there's an issue and, my deputies take a report, our detective unit handle it, they can reach out to those units to get that additional resources and sources and expertise. So that all comes part of the package deal that's a benefit to the city of Carson by contracting out their services to the sheriff's department.
Wonderful. Now, as you know, both Jackie and I sit on the board for the Sheriff Station Support Foundation. Could you tell us a little bit about that organization and what does that organization do to support the work that you do?
So I don't know if there's another station let me back up. So what Jackie said, we don't have that animosity here in the city of Carson or our surrounding areas as we've seen in some other parts of the world with law enforcement. That being said, I have to give credit to both sides. I have to give credit, one, to our deputies and the leadership that has even come before me by creating those networks and creating that partnerships and by building those relationships. But I also have to give credit to our community members because we have community members like you folks who are engaged, who want to be part of, who see things from an open mind. So often people see things just through their spectrum. And then when it doesn't go in their spectrum, then they look at it, hey, it has to be something wrong. No. So with that, we have been blessed and lucky enough to have our Carson Sheriff Station Support Foundation, which is made up of clergy members, which is made up as businesses, which is made up as involved community members, like Jackie and Dr. Sharma. We got Watson Land, we got Marathon, we have Shell, we have Mission Ebenezer Church. We have all these various folks who are involved. We got some of our small business owners, Ms. Ray Aldridge, and everyone who are all come together regularly to figure out and support us here at the Sheriff Station because they realize we're part of this big government. We're part of the Sheriff's Department, which is this big, 10,000 sworn, 6,000 professional staff organization, which is part of this big LA County. And we know how big that is. And so they realize, what the foundation has realized is, hey, you're only going to get so much money allocated to you for vehicles, for tasers, for training, for some of the basic necessities, and for some of your community reach out. But we realize that, hey, we want to see you be successful. So all those entities have come together to make a foundation, and together by either the golf tournament or with the award ceremony or other events, they raise money to help us be that bridge, be that gap when there's necessities we need. So many times the foundations has helped us. Me as the captain, we do realize there are going to be times when we may have to deal with an assaultive, high-risk individual out in the field. And I would hate, and the foundation has realized that. So, for example, what the foundation has done, they say, hey, Captain Jones, do you have enough tasers so that taser is an option for your deputies rather than lethal force if they come around that situation? So how beneficial is that? So now I'm able to outfit each one of my deputies with the right amount of tasers so they have that option rather than lethal force if they come upon that situation. So that's where one of the ways where the foundation has been helpful, as well as like with our Christmas toy and family assistance program. They've been very helpful there by giving us funding to be able to go out and get food and toys for those families we've identified that can use that little bit of assistance. So that's the big role that the foundation has played in assisting us in being successful in our outreach, as well as just mitigating crime and improving the quality of life.
Thank you. And I'll make sure that we put the website for the support foundation at the end of the podcast. It's one of the most fulfilling roles that I play. I sit on a lot of boards and I do have my favorites, and that's one of them. But it's nice to be able to see some of the things that happen behind the scenes and some of the needs that you guys have, and to be able to fulfill that. Everything from doing events and activities for the deputies, from improving the facilities to providing emergency kits in case we have any type of active shooter type things at either Dignity Health or, at the schools. So it's a wonderful organization. And if anybody's interested in supporting, we'll definitely put that information there. So, and thank you for your partnership with that organization, because it really is a group of people working collectively to keep our community safe. So real quickly before we wrap up, so when people are calling, I know sometimes I try to make a logical decision on whether or not to call 911 versus calling the station directly versus calling or reaching out to specific deputies. How do residents make that distinction? When is it more appropriate to call 911 versus calling the station?
You know what? You just said something I'm so glad you mentioned. So the last thing you just said, Dr. Henderson, was reaching out to specific deputies. So you remember how you mentioned earlier, which is great. This is like, because we have such a supportive and we've built those bonds, many of our residents have built bonds with specific deputies. But please, sir, please, ma'am, if you see someone breaking into a car, and let's just say it's me, and you have a personal relationship with me, and it's Saturday at 2 p.m., I would rather you call the station, either 911 or the 310-830 number, rather than call me first personally. Hey, Captain Jones, how you doing? Yeah, hey, this car. Because now look at the delay that creates. Because now you're going to tell me the information. That's 2 minutes. I'm going to hang up. I'm going to call the station, say, hey, guys, it's Captain Jones. There's a burglary going on the corner of Walk and Don't Walk. Then they got to take the information. So you see how much a delay is? So please, I would ask, even though you may have that personal relationship with that officer, that deputy, whoever it may be, if it's a non-emergent or something where we can just have a routine patrol call, go on a priority call the 310-830-1123 call. But if it's emergent, it's happening now, it's a matter of, grab and go and they may be able to get away, then dial the 911 and we'll respond appropriately.
That's great. Thank you for the information. Yeah, I must say when I do call, I call because they're assigned to my community. So, which I do appreciate that we have. I live in Avalon Greens in South Carson, District 4, which some people aren't aware of. And so specific deputies that work, and I actually get rerouted to them half of the time. So, but it is important for our residents to know that because we do have a lot of deputies. I'm one. There's always stuff going on around me, and I stick my head and I'm like, "Hey, Doc." I'm like, "Hey, y'all, who are you catching today?" So, no, but we have wonderful, wonderful deputies that serve our community, and I'm very, very appreciative of not only their service but the climate of our station. So, that being said, to wrap it up, what are the things that excite you about Carson, about your service and your work in Carson? And what are you excited about moving forward?
Oh, man. So first and foremost, I'm just excited about, I get to just talk to different people from different walks of life. And I get to hear their story, but also grow and gain from them. So just because I'm the captain doesn't mean I have all the answers, and I know all the answers. So I'm excited, one, to talk to my staff and just hear their point of view on things, but then to go out and talk to folks. It's just like yesterday, like I said, we did our Happy Helpers campaign where we reached out and went gave the gift cards out. Like, it felt good just hearing people's different stories, because sometimes I think it helps not only keep you grounded, but it also remember that we all have a different road to travel, and it's important that we encourage and support each other. Because one thing I always try to pass on to my deputies is make sure we're treating people right, treat them like we want to be treated. Make sure we show people that we care about them. And I ask my deputies, please, all I ask is that you have integrity and you do your best every day. And so that's what I'm excited about, because when in this job, I'm able to connect with people and carry out those things that I'm asking from my deputies. As far as the city, the city has this mantra of future unlimited. And so I really 100% believe that. And I feel not only does the sheriff's department have an unlimited future, but I think the city as a whole, when we work collectively as a grooming, the city management, folks like you all who are involved. And then lastly, and one of the things I've always enjoyed in me even growing up here is the city is so diverse. The diversity of it is the winningest thing the city has. I think it knocks out so many other cities because of the diversity, and it allows everyone to be involved, and it celebrates everyone. We'll celebrate Hispanic heritage. We'll celebrate Asian American. We'll celebrate Juneteenth. We'll celebrate everybody so that it is inclusive. So that's the things that excite me about the city and about the job, and that I'm looking forward to continuing on and continue to help us all just grow and be better.
Well, I want to do one more plug for a program from this station that we did not mention, but I'll just mention them briefly, is the Carson Cares program, which was a deputy-run program. They raise money, they provide services, and it really is the best of community policing that you see anywhere. So I want to extend our appreciation and give them a plug for the work that they do. Thank you so much, Captain Jones, for joining us, for giving us your time, your information. It's been a pleasure to have you. Thank you to my co-hosts, John Hollaway and Jackie Momoli, for your time and assistance. Like I said, Captain Jones, you're very popular. So he had some folks that wanted to be on and help carry the load for my duties as the host of the Carson Accountability and Transparency Organization and the Carson Observer Podcast. Thank you so much for your time and your effort, your work, and your energy.
Thank you guys very much. And I appreciate all you guys' support. You guys' support keeps us encouraged. My deputies appreciate the cookies, the hugs, the handshake, dropping off the food, the pizza, all that goes a long way. So I thank you guys very, very much. You guys all take care. Appreciate it, and look forward to teaming up with you guys in the future.
Thank you so much. Take care. So, to our guests, thank you for listening to the Carson Observer Podcast, where we connect, educate, and inform the residents and stakeholders of the city of Carson. Take care and be on the lookout for future episodes.